December 2nd, 1993. On the rooftop of an ordinary house in Medellín, Colombia, lay the bloody body of a man who had been trying to escape, barefoot. This man was no ordinary criminal. He controlled 80% of the world's cocaine trade, with a daily income reaching $70 million. He provided homes for thousands of poor families, built stadiums and hospitals, and at the same time, ordered the murder of thousands of human beings. He blew up passenger planes in mid-air, assassinated judges and ministers, and turned his city into the most dangerous place on earth. This video is the story of Pablo Escobar, the most famous trafficker in history, whose legendary wealth once ranked him among the 10 richest people in the world. He was born in 1949. His father was a poor farmer and his mother a schoolteacher. Pablo was the third of 7 children. When he was a child, the family moved to the crime-ridden city of Medellín, an industrial but impoverished city. Escobar began his path in the world of crime with small and strange jobs, from stealing tombstones, sandblasting the names of the dead to sell them back to the living, to smuggling cigarettes and forging educational diplomas. Escobar's first steps in the underworld began on a small scale in the late 1960s. Reports show he started by stealing and reselling cars, manipulating ownership documents to sell them at higher prices. He then moved on to smuggling cigarettes and contraband. What distinguished Escobar from other petty criminals was not just his level of violence, but his view of crime as a business model, with the capacity for growth and expansion. Instead of being a street thief, thinking only of immediate gain, he looked at his work like an entrepreneur. He was able to organize small local networks, and by removing middlemen and optimizing smuggling routes, he significantly increased his profit margins. This was a purely commercial approach that later formed the foundation of his empire. The main turning point in Escobar's career came with the beginning of the 1970s and the emergence of the cocaine market in the United States. In cities like Miami, the demand for this drug erupted like a volcano, and the market was waiting for someone who could deliver this white and deadly substance. Colombia, with its unique geographical position and favorable climate for coca cultivation, became the center of this storm. Realizing this massive need, Escobar shifted his traditional trade routes. He saw cocaine trafficking not as a risk, but as the economic opportunity of the century. The profit margins in this business were insane. Every kilogram of cocaine produced for a pittance in the villages of Colombia could be sold for dozens of times its cost, thousands of dollars, once it successfully entered the U.S. market. This price difference sent an unprecedented flood of dollars into Medellín. At this stage, Escobar was no longer worried about how to make money. He was worried about how to hide and manage this limitless volume of cash. To protect this fledgling empire and control this staggering cash flow, he created a ruthless yet solid organizational structure, the Medellín Cartel. A cartel is a consortium of major traffickers who united with the goal of monopolizing production and distribution routes. This alliance gave them the power to both share operational costs and stand with absolute strength against any police or competitive threat. But this limitless wealth was not just a tool for smuggling and survival. For Pablo Escobar, this capital was a gateway to buying absolute social influence and power, transforming him from a smuggler into the undisputed leader of a shadow nation. By the mid-1980s, Pablo Escobar's empire reached its peak of power and profitability. The Medellín cartel effectively controlled 80% of the cocaine entering the United States. According to credible reports, this meant smuggling approximately 15 tons of cocaine into American territory every single day. To better understand these statistics, one must realize that Escobar was earning a net income of over $420 million every week. These astronomical figures quickly made him one of the wealthiest men in history. And in 1989, Forbes magazine officially ranked him among the top 10 richest people in the world. This massive mountain of wealth created an unbelievable logistical nightmare: physical cash. Escobar was forced to hide unimaginable amounts of banknotes every month. It is estimated that he lost about 10% of his total wealth every year, hundreds of millions of dollars, simply due to rot, moisture in hiding places, or being eaten by rats. According to published reports, he had to spend approximately $2,500 every month just on rubber bands to bundle and store the stacks of cash. These statistics are not just symbols of wealth. They are evidence of a financial empire that operated independently of the state, run by a single man. To facilitate these operations, the Medellín cartel built a sophisticated logistics network. Smuggling was carried out not only via speedboats, but also through large cargo planes and even, in some reports, customized mini-submarines. Hacienda Nápoles, Escobar's private estate and palace, became the heart of this empire. This massive property, spanning about 2,000 hectares, featured not only a large private airstrip capable of receiving cargo jets, but also a luxurious zoo. It housed elephants, giraffes, hippos, and other animals imported from around the world, a symbol of unrivaled wealth and absolute vanity. While the world knew Escobar as the king of cocaine, in Medellín, he was worshipped as the Colombian Robin Hood. This public persona was not a coincidence. It was a carefully calculated strategy. Escobar understood that his greatest weapon and shield was not violence, but the absolute loyalty of the impoverished masses. To build this shield, he used his wealth for massive infrastructure projects. Under a project titled Medellín Without Slums, he launched the largest private charity operation in Colombian history. He built an entire neighborhood of about 3,000 houses for the city's poorest residents and gave them away for free. He was also the primary investor in hospitals, schools, and hundreds of soccer fields. These actions created a new social reality. Ordinary people, especially in the slums, saw him as their true benefactor, someone who gave them what the corrupt Colombian government had denied them for decades. This influence brought him real political power. Whenever the police or army entered neighborhoods under his influence, they were met with resistance, stone throwing, and early warnings from the residents. For Escobar, this social spending was a security investment that provided him with absolute immunity from public pursuit. With this popular and financial backing, Escobar's ambition went beyond the world of smuggling. He dreamed of absolute political legitimacy. In 1982, he successfully won a seat as an alternate representative in the Colombian Congress. His entry into parliament was a major victory. He was in the process of legalizing his illegal empire while enjoying the judicial immunity granted to members of Congress. But this peak was the beginning of a dramatic fall. The presence of a known trafficker at the highest political level of the country sounded the alarm for Colombia's elite. Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, the courageous Minister of Justice at the time, stood firmly against him. Armed with evidence, Bonilla publicly exposed Escobar's illegitimate wealth and criminal activities. This revelation shattered Escobar's political legitimacy. Congress was forced to expel him, and his judicial immunity was revoked. This was a turning point. Escobar stood at a crossroads. He could either withdraw from politics and continue his illegal trade quietly, or he could fight the state. He chose the second path. His expulsion from Congress was an unforgivable insult. This rage transformed him from an influential smuggler into a political terrorist, and the bloody war between the Colombian government and the cocaine empire officially began. After his expulsion from Congress, Escobar's strategy underwent a total transformation. He was no longer seeking hidden influence. He sought absolute sovereignty through intimidation and fear. This change in strategy was summarized in a single phrase: plata o plomo, meaning silver or lead. This principle was the foundation of his reign of terror: accept the bribe or be killed. Using his endless wealth, Escobar systematically targeted state institutions. He injected corruption into the very veins of the police, the army, the judiciary, and even the press. Every government official, from a simple soldier to a high-ranking judge, faced a choice: accept his bags of money, silver, and become an ally, or reject it and face certain death, hot lead. This strategy effectively dismantled the structure of the Colombian government from within, ensuring that many laws were, in practice, executed only by the will of the Medellín cartel. However, the primary factor that drove Escobar's rage to the point of madness and pushed him toward outright terrorism was the issue of extradition. The United States had signed a treaty with Colombia that allowed major Colombian traffickers to be sent to the U.S. for trial. For the cartel kingpins, this treaty was a death sentence. Escobar and his associates did not fear Colombian prisons, as they knew they could buy special amenities and freedoms there, and even continue their operations from behind bars. But American prisons were places where neither money nor influence worked. Therefore, Escobar viewed extradition as the greatest threat to his existence. The famous slogan of the traffickers was, "We prefer a grave in Colombia to a prison cell in the United States." This was the spark that led Escobar to launch an all-out war against the Colombian state, with the sole aim of completely abolishing the extradition treaty. To pressure the government into canceling extradition, Escobar unleashed the most brutal wave of terror in modern Colombian history. He decided to send a bloody message to the entire nation by assassinating key figures who supported the treaty. The first victims were those who had dared to stand against him. Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, the Minister of Justice who had exposed him, was assassinated in 1984 in the heart of Bogotá. Then came the turn of judges, police chiefs, and journalists who resisted his power. The violence reached its peak in 1989 and 1990, when Escobar turned to blind terrorism. His primary targets were presidential candidates who supported the continuation of the extradition treaty. Luis Carlos Galán, a frontrunner in the presidential election and a fierce supporter of extradition, was assassinated during a public rally. And then came the height of the horror: the bombings. In November 1989, the Medellín cartel planted a bomb on an Avianca passenger plane. The goal of this terrorist act was to kill one of the main presidential candidates, whom Escobar mistakenly believed was on that flight. The bombing resulted in the deaths of all 107 people on board. A few months later, he ordered the bombing of the Administrative Department of Security, DAS, building in Bogotá, which killed 63 people and injured hundreds of others. The exhaustion of war and the constant pursuit eventually wore down both sides. In 1991, to end the bloodshed, the Colombian government agreed to a strange deal. The constitution was changed to ban the extradition of citizens to the U.S. In return, Pablo Escobar would surrender. But his prison was no ordinary prison. Pablo had stipulated that he would build the prison himself. The result of this agreement was a facility called La Catedral, the cathedral. In reality, it was a recreational palace, not a prison. Situated in the highlands of Medellín, it featured amenities that surpassed even luxury hotels: a soccer field, a bar, a billiards room, a swimming pool, and even an artificial waterfall. By choosing his own personal security guards, Escobar effectively continued to run his smuggling operations from inside this prison. He lived in La Catedral and issued orders for assassinations and trafficking through advanced telephone lines he had installed there. The police were not allowed within a radius of several kilometers of the prison. Pablo hosted lavish parties and even brought his rivals inside the facility to be tortured and murdered. When news of the murders inside the prison leaked out, the humiliated government finally decided to move him to a real military prison. Pablo Escobar, always alert and aided by guards who remained fiercely loyal, became aware of the government's plan to move him. Before the army could arrive, he executed a well-organized escape from his luxury prison, vanishing once again into the depths of Medellín. This escape marked the beginning of the final chapter of his life, a relentless, all-out human manhunt. Immediately after his flight, the Colombian government, backed by unprecedented logistical and intelligence support from the United States and the DEA, formed an elite special operations task force known as the Search Bloc. Their mission was singular: find Escobar, dead or alive. At the same time, a mysterious vigilante group known as Los Pepes emerged. Composed of Pablo's enemies, the families of his victims, and members of the rival Cali cartel, Los Pepes fought Pablo using his own brutal methods. They systematically assassinated Escobar's lawyers, accountants, and associates, and set his properties ablaze. During this period, Escobar was forced to flee from hideout to hideout with his family, his wife, Maria Victoria, and his 2 children, Sebastián and Manuela. The man who once lived in a palace with a private zoo was now hiding in cramped apartments and cold mountain regions. On one of the coldest nights of the pursuit, Escobar faced a heartbreaking scene. His daughter, Manuela, was shivering from the cold, and the family was trapped in a hideout without any heating. In that moment, without a second thought, Escobar did something that became the ultimate symbol of the decay of his wealth. He set fire to approximately $2 million in cash. He burned the banknotes simply to keep his daughter warm and to cook a basic meal for his family. It was a bitter symbol of the absolute futility of his vast fortune in the face of basic human needs, and a sign of the total collapse of his kingdom. The circle was tightening. Pablo's friends were either being killed or surrendering. His family attempted to flee the country, but no nation would accept them, and they were deported back to Colombia. The man who was once the most powerful person in Colombia was now isolated and alone, hiding in safe houses. December 2nd, 1993, one day after Pablo's 44th birthday, he was in a hideout in the Los Olivos neighborhood. His longing for his family led him to make a fatal mistake. He called his son and stayed on the line for too long. The tracking technology of the time allowed the search block to pinpoint his exact location. Police forces stormed the building. Pablo and his loyal bodyguard tried to escape across the rooftops. The sound of gunfire shattered the silence of the neighborhood. Pablo ran barefoot across the roof, but this time there was no escape. Bullets tore through his body. The image of the bloated, bloody corpse of Pablo Escobar, with police officers standing over him with smiles on their faces, was quickly broadcast to the entire world. The king of cocaine was dead. Some of his inner circle, including his brother, believed that he committed suicide, that the final shot to his ear was his own doing, as he had always vowed he would never be taken alive. But whatever the truth, the result was the same: the end of an era of terror. With Escobar's death, the Medellín cartel collapsed, but the cocaine trade did not stop. Only the players changed. The Cali cartel, and later the Mexican cartels, rose to take his place. Pablo Escobar's legacy for Colombia remains deeply complex. To many, he was a monster who killed thousands and brought the nation to its knees. But for some of the poor in Medellín, he is still the man who gave them cash and homes and developed the city's infrastructure. They still keep his photo in their homes like a saint. The presence of over 25,000 mourners at his funeral showed that His status among certain lower classes in Colombia is undeniable. Today, Hacienda Nápoles, his legendary estate, has been turned into a theme park. The hippos he once imported have multiplied in Colombia's rivers and become a major ecological crisis, a living symbol that the effects of Escobar's actions, even years after his death, continue to haunt the country. The story of Pablo Escobar is an eternal warning that when corruption, poverty, and injustice are ignored, monsters are born that even armies cannot easily defeat. What is your opinion on Escobar? Please share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it. Thank you for staying with us until the end.